My name is Tamara Kostianovsky. I'm a visual artist. I work with sculpture and installation. I am based in New York City and I grew up in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I started working with textiles after learning about feminist women artists who had been using their own bodies in their work, particularly in performance work in the 70s and 80s. I was inspired to include my body in the work, to make art that was anti-patriarchal, I guess. Anecdotally, within the few first months of living in the US, coming here from Argentina, I shrunk most of my clothes in the dryer and they were unusable. So I started thinking of the clothing as a possible material to make sculpture with. And in doing so, I realized that there was more than just the anecdote to it, that there was a political statement, an economical statement. I wasn't purchasing art supplies, I was reusing things that otherwise would go into the landfill. And to a certain degree, I was including my body in the work. I think that the clothing has an imprint of the body, it carries memories, it carries experiences, and even dead cells if you don't wash them. So it was a type of indirect type of performance in which my body was present without me literally being in the work. After my father passed away, I was thinking about what to do with his material possessions, and because I had been working with my own clothing for a long time, I started thinking of using his clothing for the creation of some works. My father spent the last few years of his life dedicated to gardening. He definitely had a green thumb and he would have loved it here at Cheekwood. So I decided to start making a group of new sculptures that I call tree carcasses. So there are basically sculptures of dead trees that incorporate some of my father's corduroy pants, which were his signature style, as if it was tree bark. And the trees in themselves are reminiscent of the color palette of human anatomy. There's a lot of yellows and fleshy colors. So what I'm trying to do is somewhat to create a type of analogy between the body of the tree and the body of a person. So this is another body of work that I make. I call these textile panels. They are made on a wood support and they are covered in textiles. This piece uses a very deep blue. It's very vibrant. A few years ago, I had an experience to travel to Naples, Florida, to do some research for an exhibition, and it was there that I had access to seeing the fauna, the egrets, the alligators. It was really impressive, just everything I've seen. But the one thing that stayed with me the most was really the intensity of the blue sky. And that is what inspired this color that you see in here, which I don't think I have exaggerated. I think it was really this intense. This is a sculpture that belongs to a body of work that I started using after my father's passing, which incorporates some of his clothing. I thought of these works as a type of memorial, not just for a loved one that I lost, but also a memorial for the earth and for the trees that we lose on a regular basis. You will see that with this type of artwork, there's always a mechanical cut to the tree. So it's not that the trees died in a storm or out of lightning strike. It's really because somebody cut them. I think the top layer reveals a palette indicative of human anatomy. There's a lot of yellows and pinks and reds. And once again, I tried to create a type of identification between the body and the tree. The shape in itself is reminiscent of a coffin or of a body lying down at some sort of like funeral procession. And I think that when people circle it around, that comes to life even more. The way that I work with this is I make a structure with wood, with plywood, with armature wire. And I also go out in nature and photograph dead trees. When I find a tree that I like, I would try to sculpt it, which is what I did here. And then I would actually photograph the face of the tree, what I call the face of a tree. And once I have that high resolution image, I would print it and glue it onto the wood that I constructed. So once I have that photograph on my tree, I start tracing it with fabric. It's not that I'm making up the knots of the tree, I'm actually following the pattern that exists in nature. nature. And I think that sense of realism that is departing from reality through the use of colors that are more arbitrary is a really strong anchor to create that connection that the work is real. Most of the stripes that you find in all of my work really are kind of edging of the fabric. So I use that discarded material. So it's already pre-cut and it's usually thrown away or goes into landfills. I like to think that I rescue that material and I use it for my work. This piece is called Narcissus. It's a site-specific installation in which we see the stump of a tree and a very large and all-encompassing system of roots that take up a particular semicircular shape to reveal almost like a network of connections, similar to the way that neurons align in the brain, trying to make, once again, type of analogies between the human body and the world of anatomy. Some of these sections of this network have geometric shapes to them, and I was inspired to do that by seeing trees growing in urban environments in which oftentimes the roots try to circumvent the floor tiles or things on the ground that would have a more geometric orientation. The piece also may be reminiscent of a map of a city. So there's more than one connection that I hope people will be making when thinking of that. As I was working on this piece, and it became pretty ambitious sculpturally, and it was taking over, I started thinking of what would be a way of reflecting that or bringing that to the viewer. So that's how the idea of the reflective surface came about. And as I continued to work on experiment with reflective materials, something that I was after is this idea of a reflection, and I have done this in several of my other works in which there is like a duality between a piece and another. It's sort of a connection. It talks about love. It's sort of against an individualistic standpoint. In here, I think that somehow the reflection is alluding to something else. We're talking about a piece that is very much centered on the environment, pretty much the most defining feature of our times. And to a certain degree, I would like to think that the reflection is sort of a projection of a future for the environment that appears to be quite uncertain, blurry, pixelated, but it's still there, and it's still up to us to build it in a sustainable way.